Hello, everybody. It's UJ here. Welcome back. Hope you have had a chance to look at the two previous videos of the Peacock sex, and you don't have to have seen them to watch this one, but you might want to stop back there if you haven't seen them. Uh, they lay out the reasons that this channel is called the Peacock sex. The first talks about the biological differences between males and females that are visible as we stood upright, face to face, originally without clothing on, and we develop preferences for certain elements of the opposite sex's body, and um, the females became more and more peacock, which is a more flamboyant, expressive, attractive sex. The male's a little drabber. The second video covered some of the cultural tools that different cultures have invented and to enable females to highlight their peacock sex traits, um, from their shaving practices to their hairstyles to the makeup and jewelry to the shoes to the dresses. It doesn't quit. Um, this video is about the mechanism that created those differences between human males and females. What's the trigger? What is at the core of it? Uh, so first, let me mention that we are not the only species that has a more flamboyant female. Uh, when there is a clear difference in appearance and between the male and the female, that's called dimorphism. And in most species, the more flamboyant sex is the male, as you're aware of, and as the peacock is an example. The peacock is the male of that species. The peahen is the female of the peafowl species. Um, but evolution can do it at once, and there are circumstances in which the female is the more flamboyant, expressive sex. And by expressive, there I mean every meaning of that term, not just words, although it includes words. It also would include intonations and vocalizations and things like that. So now, let me mention one species that's particularly interesting, and uh, I hope you'll see a similarity between our species and this species, which happens to be a parrot species. Um, its Latin name is Eclectus roratus, and it is a parrot that is native to Australia, New Guinea, New Zealand, areas like that. And it is known as the most dimorphic parrot species. The species where the male and the female are the most dissimilar. Uh, so dissimilar, in fact, that the first scientists to write about the species and uh, to discover this species thought that the male and the female were two different species, but they ended up being the same species, just very different in appearance. Um, the female is fire engine red, and maybe some other colors, but mainly fire engine red. And the female sits in a nest in a jungle tree, a tree in the forest. Now she competes rather viciously with other females, or at least enthusiastically with other females to get that nice nest in a tree. And she doesn't stray far from the tree because with that color, of course, she would be easy pickings for predators in that area. Uh, Now, she is provisioned by males that may fly out many miles to get nuts, berries, insects for her. The males are mostly green, with a little maybe red piping and a little red under its wings and things like that. But they're green, so when they go out to forage for food, they are camouflaged well in the greenery of the forest or jungle, wherever they happen to be. Um, And then they come from many miles to provision each female. Up to five males are bringing food back for each female, and the female doesn't stray far from its nest. And the although one male fathers the offspring of the female, but four or five provision it. Uh, and the males then can hone in on this red color from a distance. So obvious, we see the reason for the red coloring. Uh, right in and around the nest, the female can easily be seen from a distance, so the males can find her and to give her food. Um, were she to fly around a lot, that would not be a good move. That she would be uh, very easily spotted by eagles, hawks, other predators. Um, but so we can see how the lifestyle led to the coloration of the female, because it wasn't as if in the distant past, both birds were red and the males became greener, greener, greener. Quite likely, it was both birds were greenish with some red tinges in their feathers, and the females, through successive generations, became redder, 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 until you get the bird we see today, a bird that is much different in appearance from the male. Um, so we see how the lifestyle has um, such a tremendous effect on the differences between the male and the female in that species. Um, Now they're not the only bird, and there are other birds like the phalarope, the dotterel, other birds where the female has elements that are more eye-catching than the male. But I just thought the Eclectus is quite similar to our species. Now we are not a close relative of Eclectus. However, um, we have uh, an eclectus female also, or a peacock female. I call it a peacock sex because very few people would know what eclectus is. But I could have called them the eclectus sex, but they're the peacock sex, our females. So it's flipped in our species, as in eclectus and a few others, where the female is more uh, attractive, expressive in every way, flamboyant, eye-catching, and so we're one of that minority of species in which that has occurred. So it is biologically based. This is not coercion or culture. This is biologically based. Um, now, so what is the mechanism in humanity if the lifestyle of the Eclectus led to a fire engine red female and a mostly green male? Well, what led to our tremendously expressive female? And it was dependency. Dependency formed our female. Now, some women listening to this may dislike that, but of course, you're no longer dependent. We have to keep that in mind. With the jobs that exist today, with men and women working together at the same jobs, um, women are no longer dependent. But in the past, uh, you can see how female dependency turned them into a peacock. What are they dependent on males for? Well, many of you probably could guess that. They are dependent on males for protection from many threats in the environment, such as wild animals. They're dependent among our distant ancestors for protection from leopards, from lions, from venomous snakes that could envenomate them and kill them. They're protected from intruders, from other groups that might bear them ill will and could harm them. That's what they're protected from. So the women and the children are protected, um, and so the females are depend on men for that. Another thing they depend on men for is extra food. Um, because of the division of labor, which in a future video we'll get to way down the line, because that's a little complicated how that's a benefit. But um, the lifestyle is such that the females stay closer to the camp. Now, uh, let's remember what The Rock said in the trailer for Jungle Cruise. His character made the statement, everything in the jungle can kill you. Well, that was the human situation. Substitute that, edit that a little, and say, everything outside the human camp, the campsite, can kill you. That was the world in which our ancestors lived in. They didn't live in the cushy suburbs that we live in today. They lived in a very dangerous environment. The females are smaller than the males. They're 90 or 100 pounds. They cannot defend themselves against a 150-pound male leopard. And we were leopard meat. We were leopard food. So the males at least trained in the weapons, the spears, and eventually maybe a wicked club with a rock on the end of it. Um, 4 or 5 guys can chase the leopard away, perhaps kill it, and that protects the females. So females have to stay close to the camp. Their work is in the camp and on the fringes of the camp. So they help another woman give birth at the campsite. They nurture children. They gather plant material. They snare rabbits. They they might collect eggs, gather plant material. They process the plant material. It has to be processed because it is not um, immediately edible. It is toxic, so it has to go through a multi-stage processing uh, steps to make it edible for people in the group. So women are contributing to the food in their work in and near the camp, but the males are going out, and the male in groups of hunters and things, and they're killing deer, they're killing elk, they're dealing in a previous age where the megafauna was around. They might be killing a giant sloth or dealing with a saber-toothed tiger, or maybe killing a buffalo. And males working together in a group of 4, 5, 6 males can be with weapons can be quite formidable in doing that. And they, if successful, they'd cut the meat up and bring it back to the women and children. So the females want that, depend on that steady flow of calories that the males are bringing back. The males provide more calories. Probably each male provides more calories than he consumes. Each female consumes more calories that she provides. And I believe that was the situation in many foraging groups. Um, so the females were protected, or the females. Now, um, the males, as we stood up, were fascinated by certain female traits, but did not depend a lot on the women for food or protection. And even today, adult males are not protected by adult females. The other way, yes, exists. Yes, the females are protected by adult males, even if they don't mention it, even if we're living in the cushy suburbs. So, um, so that's sort of the mechanism that the now. Um, Sometimes the males don't come back from their ventures outside the camp. They might be killed by a leopard. So, 4 or 5 go out. One or two might be injured. A male might be bitten by a venomous snake, be severely injured or killed. These are risky activities. The females, except for childbirth, they have less risk. So, Every female has the burden of childbirth. Every female in our past had that burden on her shoulders. The risks of premature death from pregnancy and childbirth. And we will maybe devote a separate video to childbirth. It's certainly worthy of that. It's critical to understanding our species. This dangerous way we give birth, whereas your cat gives birth in the garage or under a shrub. Human females, no. Tons of them have died doing this. So it's a sharing of risks, a balancing of risk between the sexes. And the females, though, are dependent for these solutions. And just to um, phrase it in a little different way, um, now both sexes are seeing variations in the opposite sex bodies, head to toe, without clothing. And the males develop preferences for females with less hairy faces, more symmetrical features, interesting chests with more tissue than absolutely necessary to nurse, um, and vibrant personalities, evident from their increasingly expressive gestures, postures, and vocalizations. Females with these traits and qualities, due to normal variation among females, edged out others lacking in these traits. Females with more attractive, symmetrical faces and more expressive bodies and personalities secured for themselves a greater degree of male protection and more nutrition for themselves and their offspring. So, and so that dependency on the males and the males' interest in these um, elements of the females that were attractive as we stood upright, face to face, stark naked, that shaped us. That has shaped our species. Um, and so that is what is meant by, that is what triggered the peacock sex, drabber sex dichotomy, which everybody can see with their own eyes today because you see that the wardrobes of both sexes are different, the hairstyles are different, the use of makeup and jewelry is different, the use of nail polish is different. Um, because what also happens is you have uh, each sex would have a different inclination to use those tools. The males could wear hair bows, couldn't we? Could we paint our fingernails? Sure, we could find nail polish. It just doesn't work for us. It's working for the females. And, we could find open shoes with heels. They don't do anything for us. They don't help us. They don't help us get a attracted cheerleader. Okay. They're helping females. And that's why they make use of those tools. Those are innovations, cultural innovations that help females and highlight their peacock sex, biologically based peacock sex traits. So, so that was about it. Let me look. Um, yeah, that's about it. This was just how dependency shaped human females. Now, again, the modern world, the girls in developed countries, women are not dependent. You'll note, and they are able to make a living for themselves, provide their own food, clothing, and shelter in a relatively safe environment. So that's why we have to use our imagination to understand our past and how we got this way. So that's about all for now, and I think we have some interesting things in the future. We'll talk about all sorts of things related to how young men and young women interact with each other today, but carrying this from the past, because our brains evolved to be the way they are, and so did our bodies. But of course, now we have different environment around us. So how are we behaving today? So that's about it for now. Hit the like button, and always subscribe in advance. Subscribe in advance. See you next time.